Hey, True Believers, Englentine here. Here's another couple of classic Jack Kirby comics that I did review for. These are more suitable for Halloween, since this is Jack Kirby's really his only foray into horror comics. It's called Black Magic, and I'm going to review issue number 1 and 2, and I hope you enjoy it. So kick back, relax, and let's get this party started. I gotta tell you, the cover is kind of underwhelming. I mean, he's burning a doll. The doll's not particularly scary. There's a lot of words on there. It doesn't really produce a sense of atmosphere or anything. Overall, kind of a loss as far as covers are concerned. This starts off with a gentleman dying, and then his secretary, as he's called throughout the story, is telling the story of what happened and how his boss died. So it turns out he goes to a hospital and he's looking for the person nearest to death. And it ends up being this young woman. So he argues with the doctor, hey, let me take this young woman home. At first they won't let him, but then he reminds him, hey, I've got tons of money. You should let her come home with me. I will give her the best care, yada yada, keep her safe, keep her warm. And then after that, he does. And it's all conversation after that between the secretary and the boss. And we come to find out that the reason why he wants to keep the girl there is so he can learn the secrets of what's after life. Not by any kind of mystic means. Not by any kind of weird science thing. He literally puts his ear to her mouth and asks her what is she seeing as she dies. And this causes him to go crazy. Whatever she says causes him to go crazy and gives the death scream and such like that. And unfortunately, it's not very good. It's kind of boring. It's very long-winded. If there was some sort of supernatural element, maybe I could get to it. Because instead of scary, the guy just comes off as kooky. He comes off as crazy. You know, it's not something that is really intense. It's just something like, really? This is how you're going to... I mean, you don't think somebody did this before? But whatever words she said to him caused him to go crazy, which, okay, I guess. But yeah, overall, the first story of the book is weak. And even though the story's a little weak, the art's fine. And granted, I guess he could have done a better job setting a tone. Maybe creating some spooky ambiance, and he doesn't do that. He does draw some weird faces. But we're starting to see Jack Kirby be Jack Kirby in this book. So, you know, it's not a good story, but good art. The second story in the book is called The Woman in the Mirror, and it is a very basic story where this woman gets a new mirror, and she's staring at it. And oddly enough, the reflection is not always the same as what she's doing. She looks into it and it's frowning when she's smiling, so forth and so on. Come to find out that the reflection, the person in the mirror, wants to switch places with her and take over her life. And I think it's done pretty well. The writing is crisp. It's definitely wordy, but the art does create an ambiance. So this story ends up being a bit better than the first one. Father's Footsteps is one of the better stories here. It's a short one, though. And I like it because it's got a decent twist you see coming from a mile away, where a hangman doesn't want his son to follow in his footsteps, so he sends his wife away while the kid's a newborn. And the kid shows signs of becoming a hangman, like he hangs his toys and stuff like that. So it's ridiculous, but it's still entertaining. And, yeah, it does have a predictable ending, though. Another short but sweet story is Don't Look Now. It's about a sci-fi writer. And there's a colleague of his that goes missing, and he's investigating what's going on. And somebody keeps telling him, well, they heard that he saw something, and the guy doing the investigation is starting to hear things behind him. And he wants to look, but he doesn't know. And so I think it's all about how sci-fi and writers themselves see the world differently. And do they really dare open their eyes to what they're really writing, or do they keep it within themselves, I guess? I mean, there's a certain subtext here But overall, it's an enjoyable story. I think it's a lot deeper than what I think it's a 7-page story really should be. The 6-page story, When You Are Alive, is your classic meet somebody on the highway, get to know them, like them, and it turns out they're a ghost story. And I gotta imagine that, okay, maybe it was a little newish at this point in time. I mean, this is a trope at this point. We've heard this many times over, and it's told well here. I can't deny the fact that it is good. It's just, you know it already by now because of repeats and redos. It's something we've heard a million times before. But I guess it isn't what it's about, it's how it's about it, and in this case, it's about it pretty good. The final story in this book makes me think, okay, so maybe they watched Twilight Zone before writing it. The last one with the ghost that was in Twilight Zone, and this is Talkie Tina. My doll is the devil. My child's whatever. Anyway, point being, it's a doll comes to life trying to kill the father of the family, and the father's the only one that notices this is happening. So it's another story we've seen many, many times. Unfortunately, in this case, it's not as good as the Twilight Zone. It is obviously ripping off. I'm Talkie Tina, and I'm gonna kill you. Voiced by June Foray, which we just did a tribute video to, by the way. So, yeah, I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not great. So there you have it, gang. That is Jack Kirby's first issue of their Jump into Horror Comics Black Magic issue number 1. What'd you think? I actually thought overall it was pretty good. Yes, it had some weak stories, and it had its more strong story. I didn't care for the first story, and I'm surprised they put that first. Because if you were to just pick that up, you might think, oh, this is garbage. I don't like this. Toss it out. But it did get better. And once again, like I said, a lot of the stories are now tropes, so we've seen them before over and over and over again. However, maybe in the past, and of course younger kids probably would have gotten a big kick out of this. And I did too. I love reading these older books. Next up, we're going to talk about Black Mask number 2. This cover makes no sense. I guess it would look cool on a shelf back in the day, but when you look at it now, it looks kind of like a Salem witch trial. And yeah, that kind of goes on inside, so it works, but I don't know. Not all that well. Not a big fan so far. But there are multiple stories. This does cover one of them. Anyway, let's get to the review. The first one, The Scorn of the Faceless People, is a story of a man who's having some really bad dreams. Bad enough for him to go to the psychiatrist about him and tell him the story of it. Problem being with this story, and it's funny because in the first issue, the first story was the weakest as well. And I don't know if this is the weakest because I read the story and then record the review. But the problem is what we're seeing isn't very nightmarish. He goes back into medieval times, Amish times, I guess you could say, and meets a girl. And in the end, he ends up with a girl. And I understand this is comic code horror, but come on, you can put a little, you make it at least PG rated, right? But yeah, once again, it's not very scary. It's not very atmospheric, and overall, it's not really all that interesting either. It's a bunch of talking heads, and in this case, I just don't think what the talking heads are saying ends up being all that interesting. It's not even visually interesting. I wish I could at least say that much. The next story in the book is The Cheerful Old Lady in Black, and it's a take on the hitchhiking ghost story. A kid is with his friends across town and finds out that his parents were in trouble. The house burned while they were in it. And he begins to hitchhike. It's a rainy night, and this old lady picks him up. And he keeps noticing the people in the back are sitting quiet. They're a little bit pale, of course. And he finds out that the people that this lady's driving around are dead. And one of the stops she has to make that night is to his home. So he's afraid that his family had died. And it's a pretty good story, as a matter of fact. I like the take on the tale. The next story is about a guy who gets a cloak. He goes to the tailor, gets all made up, says, deliver it to me, and the guy delivers it. And as soon as he gets the cloak and he's wearing it out, he starts to find himself in a series of mishaps. His cloak gets caught in a subway door, and at one point some guy throws a hammer towards his head. And he notices the cloak never gets damaged, and he realizes it might be cursed, so he tries to give it away, only to find out that it was not the cloak he was supposed to get. It's a magic cloak. It's a cursed cloak. And so he passes it off to a homeless person. And I think this was a missed opportunity, because if it ended up with him finding out that the cloak was cursed, it would have had a bum, bum, bum kind of moment. But it didn't. They tried to make him a hero at the end, which kind of deflated any chance of horror in the story. Okay, this one's good. A man sees a woman and thinks she looks like the face on a sarcophagus at a museum, and talks to her, and they end up getting along very well, and he takes her out, and they have a very nice dinner, and he starts to really like this woman, and she starts telling the story of the past, and comes to find out that she believes that he is the reincarnation of the man that betrayed her in the past. And she is actually the princess come to life that is inside the sarcophagus. It is a good twist on the story. I liked it. It had a good mood, quickly paced. Very, very nice. Finally, we have the story Yesterday You Died, which is, once again, a lot of missed opportunity. Now, I think there's a little problem here where my writer's mind is working, and I think I can do better. Now, the art is fine. Now, I'm told Jack Kirby has done this, but I don't see the Kirbyisms in this, so it makes me question. Now, I'm not going to do another one. I'm going to go over to the Demon, I think, for the rest of the Kirby month. But this story here has a woman seeing somebody murdered, but there's nobody there. And then she meets the people who did the murdering and the dying. And I thought, wow, I know where this story could go. And it ends up not. And because they have to tag on a happy ending to this, it really just ruins the story. Well,
so there you go,
gang.
guys. Another classic comic book review. I hope you enjoyed it.
Saturday
It was
Kirby month.
interesting
Like I said,
to
I'm
look
gonna
at
go to
some
the Demon
Jack
next,
Kirby comics.
because in all honesty, I'm just not impressed with these.
If you do like
really
the classic
am not.
comic reviews, just
and
tell
I
me.
understand
I'll pop in
it's
some new
after
ones as well.
Code
I'm
1950s
entertained
horror,
by them, especially the
but
old horror
my gosh,
stories.
they
You know,
done
it's
a better job.
why not?
So yeah, I'm gonna search
It's
for the Demon
Halloween,
and
so we
stuff
might
like
as
that.
well
See,
throw
'cause I
in
know
some of
that's another one that
the
Kirby
other
worked on.
Golden Age or
Otherwise,
Silver Age
yeah,
horror.
it's a bit of a loss.
Bronze
for me.
had some pretty good ones
I would
as
prefer
well.
something
Anyway,
with a little more
let me know what
bite
you think
to
in
it.
the
I mean,
comments
dang, if
below.
only
Don't
he
forget
did
to click
easy
like,
comics,
share,
right?
subscribe, hit that
Anyway,
notification
I hope you
bell
enjoyed
if you haven't
this.
done it already. Make sure all the notifications
Saturday
are on.
is scary,
If you don't mind
Sunday
helping
is,
out the channel, go
Super
on over to
Team, so we're
Patreon or
gonna
to
get to
Ko-Fi
that.
and drop a
thank
dollar
you
in the
very
tip jar,
much
or go
for
on over
being
to
a patron,
Ko-Fi
and thank you
and
very much
commission
for
a
watching.
video. The link's in the description below. You can pick any subject, any topic, and we'll get that video out to you ASAP. And if you want it specifically on this channel, just say so in the description. I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.